Cool. Thanks for this, Ted, and thanks for your stamina. I've done tons and tons of your niching exercises, and like I'm really good at explaining things at length because like I do things with a lot of layers. And like I'm finding my issue is like when I try to like simplify, like it gets boring and it also gets incomprehensible.
Right.
And so I'm curious if you have any recommendations about that. I can say a little bit more about my work if that's helpful.
Well, I can say the thing that often is the cause of that is that we actually haven't really honed in on island A and B. And so what we're left to talk about is either the boat or our point of view.
So I think, yeah, so one of the issues is that, like, I feel like, so I work most often with autistic folks, and not only autistic folks, but like I tend to work with people who are like, how they access health for themselves is like there's a lot of complexity and there's a lot of layers to it. And how they keep sort of getting shut out and not supported is like they need to like fit into a box that they don't fit into. And like I know that's kind of defining it in the negative, but like and also like I'm like the model of health I'm working with is not goal oriented. Like it's really about like if we focus on like your capacity to make room and ask questions and like be present, like have these skill sets with different layers of things in your life, like you know what's the health that can emerge and what's the clarity that can emerge for you.
Okay, so it's just like if they can make more space in their life and be more curious, their life is going to work better for them, broadly speaking. Like that's a sort of missing approach with skill set.
Yeah, and there's certain layers. It's sort of like, okay, like can you have a good relationship with your body? Can you have a good relationship with your inner conflict and self-talk? Can you have a good relationship, you know, with the earth? Can you have a good relationship with how you're interacting with like oppressive social structures? Can you have a good relationship with how you're interacting with the spirit world? And like, to me, I think a lot of what people are suffering from is the compartmentalization of those things. You know, I think it's a little bit like if you go to a sand tray therapist and like they have like a dog and a mailman, you know, it's like there's only so far you can go with that. But it's like if there's all these shelves of different things that then like their self-organization can be like, oh yeah, I want the dog. Oh, I can have a dragon. I didn't know I can have a dragon. Can I have a Valkyrie? I don't have a Valkyrie, but here's some clay. Do you want the, you know, so it's sort of like that's the sort of model of like making room for like what emerges for them. So like to me, like if I'm trying to like cap that too much, it's missing what I actually do offer clients.
Okay, if you had to, what would you say is Island A for them?
There's layers like the, like so this is this is my problem again.
What are the main symptoms that would have them come to work with you?
I think so like people who do a heck of a lot of exploring on their own and they want somebody who can ask them like really good questions to help them with their own like creative and healing process is one.
Why do they need a healing process?
Sorry?
Why do they need a healing process? Healing from what?
It can be like any of those layers, and like to me, like any of those layers spills into the other. You know, whether it's like,
Okay,
hey, like I have, yeah.
It was what I thought. This is, yeah, you're getting lost in the point of view and not the direct lived experience of the, so are you working with the autistic people or their families?
Autistic people. And some of the complexity of that is most autistic people don't know they're autistic.
Sure. Okay.
Um,
So so this is the challenge, is that the complexity is in the point of view. It's not in the symptom or what they're craving. That's the thing. So for everyone, your island A, you should be, ideally, you should be able to express it for me in 3 words. It's that simple. Yeah. The craving, 3 words. 7 on the outside. That's our goal. And that's how we know we're starting to get it. It's hard to get there. This is the heavy lifting. I mean, this is why copywriters get paid so much money. It's just trying to find words for these things. But, for me, it was, I realized, oh, marketing feels bad. There's island A, if I had to sum it up. Island B, marketing feels good. It was just that simple at the end of the day. And I could extrapolate on that. But man, I got a whole career out of those 6 words. My whole day-long workshop is just based on this idea: marketing can feel good. 4 words. There's the whole message. So here's what I'm going to invite: is for everyone to reflect, how would you articulate Mariah's Island A and Island B, just from the little that you've heard. And don't worry about it being wrong. Your wrong guess might be the most helpful thing for her, because you read it and say, the fuck, it's not it at all, which may prompt the clarity. But what would you guess? So for an autistic person, what's the symptom that might have them hire somebody like Mariah, who's going to be helping them create a better relationship with all these important facets of their life, their body, nature, and the spirit world, all this. Yeah, and let me I'll put it back to everybody. If somebody doesn't have those relationships, if they don't have good relationships to all those things, what are the likely symptoms? Yeah, and some of you probably already know autistic people, maybe some of you are on the spectrum yourself. So let's just take a couple minutes for people to post this in. And again, we're going for Island 8. This is a symptom. This is something they experience. Yeah, they're aware of it. This is not lost on them that it's happening. Can't sleep. Yeah. And then I know you want to talk more, but just Island B is what they're craving. They have to want it, actively craving it. They fall asleep at night thinking about this. Yeah. So those are the 2 things. And then there's going to be lots of points of view about how to make that journey. Well, let's just get some of these in. And because, again, Mariah will read this and a lot of it will be wrong, and that's great. But it may help clarify. Okay, Mariah, what's on your mind?
So I think there's a lot of ways that I can articulate something short, and like they're all true. Like, do you want to make friends with yourself? Do you want to, trust your capacity to respond and be curious instead of fleeing? Like, do you want to feel like there isn't something wrong with you? Do you want to be honored for the way that you do relationships in container rather than having to change yourself into something else?
Yeah, so right, there's a lot of different symptoms or cravings, and they could all be true. And how do you choose between them? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. Do you crave witness as yourself rather than having to be somebody different?
So this is the important thing. We want to name Island A and B in the words they would use, not the words we would use. I mean, if you've had a lot of autistic people come to you saying, I just would love somebody to witness me as I am, if they've used those words exactly, I would use that as a headline. Otherwise, we can start using our own kind of jargon and holistic speak in a way that it's just that nobody's saying it. Nobody's falling asleep. Like, if only I could be more curious about my experience. And that's not what they're thinking. But here's the exercise that I would recommend is we start with this. What's our point of view? Because there's a lot of point of view for you. And thank goodness that there is. But we say, okay, so one of the ones I heard was about all these relationships. So that's like, okay, if all those relationships are off, what are the symptoms of this? What happens as a result of that not happening? What happens as a result of them not being witnessed as they are? What happens as a result of them living in oppressive systems? What happens as a result of all that? What are the real world tangible consequences in their lived life of those things? And in the face of those experiences, what are they craving most? Now, there's going to be a long list of those. I think you'll find the puttering prep work may help with this, but one thing is you do, first of all, you just get the list of all the symptoms. And again, a symptom is just, you show it to them and say, are you dealing with this? Yes. Mm-hmm. Do you want this? Yes. It's got to be a very clear, unequivocal yes for both of those. But once you have the list of symptoms, point of view stripped out, there's a few things to do. One is you can just look at it and say, is there one that's kind of dominant that I want to have be just the front door of the house? Because the other ones, of course, they'll come in and we'll talk about those things, but there might be one that's like, this is clearly the one. There may not be. If there isn't, there's a few ways you can fiddle with this. One is you can do this chart, like a X axis, Y, or whatever. And so you get quadrants. And this axis is, how passionate are you about working with that issue? Because sometimes there are issues that's like, I know they deal with it, but this is not my favorite thing to talk about. And then on this is, how competent do you feel? How skilled do you feel in dealing with that particular issue? And you can map them out. And of course, we're looking for things you're passionate about and you're competent in. But you could also do another chart with, and by the way, you could just take each symptom or craving and put it on an index card and just do it on your floor, move them around. But you could do, how urgent is it? That could be one of the axes. Because this is a big deal for Island A. Island A, the problem on Island A has to be urgent. It has to be something like, I need to solve this today, or they're more likely to move if it's that level of urgency. If it's kind of like it hurts a little bit, but not that much, they just probably aren't going to buy. I wish we could solve prevention. I wish that worked. The history of humanity seems to prove otherwise. So that's one of but you can start to just fiddle around with them. And you may start to cluster them, Mm-hmm. You got a thought?
Well, I think I think one of the things that's coming up for me is like, are you autistic? Who needs an autistic practitioner to like actually even understand your thought processes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Because
But again, a practitioner for what? I mean, I would say that's credibility is high on that. That helps the credibility, but it doesn't necessarily help the relevance.
So one of the things that I teach classes in is healthy autistic boundaries, and like, how do you, like, not me telling people how to have boundaries, but like, hey, here's my autistic list of like everything I've been able to enumerate about what you might need to consider, from situation to situation, and like, that's one of the things that carries through whether you're dealing with like oppressive structures, whether you're dealing with like trying to figure out what spirits to talk to, whether you're feeling like trying to learn how to trust your body. Like there is like a real simplicity, even though it sort of moves through all these different domains.
It could be that the simple level is at the headline is something like, hey, are you autistic and you're struggling to just cope in modern society? And you'd just like to find a way that life could be more enjoyable. I mean, it could just be that broad. It could be that simple. And then there may be within that, maybe there's a more specific subset. Again, there's that exercise I posted in the video.
I've probably done all the exercises.
But so it could just be that simple. I mean, this is something probably a puttering session would help more than.
Yeah. Oh, I'd love to do a puttering session. Yeah.
But so it could be that simple, but it could be, hey, are you autistic and you struggle with setting boundaries in these kinds of situations where you find yourself saying yes to things you didn't really want to say yes to, or you kind of short circuit and like, so you could give those types of, and that might be the doorway in. Mm-hmm. And then part of it is sometimes there's the, they how does it go? Like, they come for the niche, but they stay for the point of view. Sometimes they come for Island A or Island B, they come for that journey, but they stick around for the point of view. And sometimes we just have to figure out, like, what's the thing that's most likely to just get them in the doorway? Because once they're there, then they're like, whoa, this thing you're talking about, relationships with all these things, it's amazing. I've never thought about that before. And suddenly,
And there's also the problem with the doorway that, like, again, like most people who come to me, there's like a neurotypal resonance, right? But like, I'd say the majority of them don't know they're autistic. And also, like, autistic spaces tend to push out my ideal client. Like, so there, yeah, like, it's the complexity is not just internal here. Like, there's a lot of complexity in the nature of what I'm working with.
Yeah, and that maybe, I mean, this could be part of it. Is like, are you first of all, if they don't recognize they're autistic, it's probably a no-go. It's just, that's probably too many rings out. Unless that the work you want to do is help people make sense of their life who have very specific symptoms that are confusing for them.
Like I said, like the majority of the clients who come to me are autistic and don't know they're autistic. So there's something that's already bringing them, like, without that descriptor.
I see. Okay. Well, then that's something that would be worth digging into. I'd be curious. I might just ask them. I might just email them all and say, why did you come? Like, what's the, and or if you know what it is, like, what's the presenting issue that brought them there?
Yeah, and I've been in the process of that, A lot of people say because you do so many things.
But that's not, this is where we just have to push and dig a bit deeper, because nobody goes to see a practitioner and spend 3 hours of their time, including travel, and spending money for the session just because. Nobody does that. They're coming for a reason. There's something very specific going on in their life that has made it worthwhile to spend that time and money. Right. That's the thing to dig into.
I mean, all autistic people are traumatized.
Right. And at a certain level, from a marketing standpoint, great, but what does that do in their life? I mean, if you went through trauma, but your life was fine, and there's, you just be like, well, yeah, I went through some rough stuff, but my life is good. But of course, it's not good, because the trauma results in certain experiences that make life very hard. And so then what are those experiences? I would just say that's the thing to dig into. If there's something that seems to be bringing them to you, it's just to like, why did you choose me? What was going on in your life? What was the symptom you had? What were you craving? It's worth just asking around, because then I see, it's this. Sometimes it's right here, which it may be for, it's like, it's just so close and we just can't quite see it. Yeah, I'm gonna have to wrap up.